Years ago, while I was in training, I read a book by Jay Haley, and one of the chapters was entitled The Art of Having an Awful Marriage, or something similar. It was many years ago. And it always left an impression on me because it was a very irreverent, playful, tongue-in-the-cheek take on saying this is what you need to do to mess up your relationship, and this is what this video is. It's irreverent, so don't repost and say this is what I say you should be doing. I'm gonna, because the book at the time had such an impact on me and has continued to have an impact on me, I'm doing this video as to honor that influence. So here comes the list of all the things you should do to guarantee that your relationship does not work. Number 1, expect your partner to heal you. Expect your partner to make you happy and to fulfill all those unmet childhood needs, to heal all the traumas of your childhood or previous relationships. This is the first guaranteed way to set yourself up on a journey for a relationship that will not work, where you enter the relationship with the expectation that the other person is going to fix you, is going to heal you, is going to fulfill all of your emotional, psychological needs. Starting a relationship like that immediately puts the person in a position where there is guaranteed failure. So this is a very good start. Number 2, which usually follows a little while after the first one, is blame your partner for your feelings and your actions. This is a key issue here. You have to very early learn to blame your partner for what you're feeling. That means you never have to take responsibility for it, because if you shout at him or at her, it's because of what they did or what they said or what they didn't say. This goes hand in hand with the third one. Try to change your partner. Once you get through the honeymoon period, and that's actually a very good time to start it as well, start making requests for change. Making requests for change in ways that can change. Start with their appearance, start with the way they talk, start with the way that they do things in the relationship. Constantly introduce the idea that you are requesting them to change, and that you will love them more if only they become the person you see they can be. This is a beautiful way of systematically breaking down the other person, but also to set your relationship on a path where it's guaranteed for failure. Number 4, avoid responsibility. You have to make sure from the start that you never take responsibility for anything. Avoid responsibility at all costs. Avoid responsibility for your actions by blaming them. Avoid responsibility for your feelings. Everything you feel and do is basically because of them. And if you establish this narrative, this way of talking about whatever happens in the relationship, you're off to a good start. When you do the first 4 things, you will be achieving a very particular outcome, and that is that you will be creating a caricature of this person. Now, a caricature is an image of a person that's distorted. It's grossly distorted and exaggerated. And by doing all of these things, the way you talk to your partner, the way you talk about your partner will become increasingly distorted. They will increasingly be something that, their mother will not recognize them, because they will be so distorted. So the fact that they sometimes raise their voice will become the fact that they are aggressive. The fact that sometimes they get frustrated with you, you have to very clearly describe that as, for example, they are not curious, or they don't really care. So a caricature is something that takes many years to really, really perfect. It should be close enough to the truth, but still a very clear distortion. And that also means that whenever your partner struggles, because they will start struggling with the caricature, just remember, do all of the above. You are stating facts, and that's all there is. The next one follows, which is make yourself the victim. There's a psychology has long since understood the power of what's called one-downmanship, or which is basically meaning by me making myself a victim, I am actually controlling the narrative. But it looks like the other person is the aggressor, they're the perpetrator. So it's very important that very early in your relationship you learn how to strategically become a victim of the other person. So you can see how becoming a victim, being completely overwhelmed, being completely feeling completely unloved, it goes hand in hand with using your emotions and blaming the other person for everything that you feel. You should under no circumstances ever move towards taking ownership for what you feel. You should become a victim, because there's no way the other person can be a victim if you're a victim. And this takes some time to refine, I have to warn you. Another way of really growing this caricature of what you want to achieve is get confirmation. Now, ideal people here are your close friends who will only tell you what you want to hear and will listen to your perspective and not challenging. That's what you need in your life. People who will not challenge the possible biases and one-sidedness of your experience. People will go, I can't believe he said that. That is so rude. That is horrible. That is abusive. What you can also do is, of course, go into extensive individual therapy where you can really perpetuate the caricature of how awful your partner is. And of course, the therapist will not realize that they're busy helping you consolidate this view of them. So get a lot of confirmation. Luckily, nowadays, there's a lot available on social media. And one of the most common trends is try and describe your partner in the sense where they're either an aggressor or a narcissist, and of course the gold standard is both. Use those terms increasingly in how you talk about your partner. This will really break down the way anyone will see them. And of course, if you can do that with your close family, it will make Christmas and Thanksgiving especially awkward for them. Very powerful move, very good to do. It's very important that you also learn what your partner needs from you, whether that is affection, whether those are nice words, or whether that is intimacy. And it's a good idea very early on to couple your victimhood, your feeling injured, you feeling abused, to your inability to provide them with their emotional needs. So it's very important to learn how to withhold, but also in a subtle way to punish them. This is, we all know punishment is very effective. So in a relationship, what you need to do is learn how to punish them, but in a way that it doesn't seem like you're punishing them. This is important to understand. You don't want to punish them overtly. You want to be unable to show affection because you are so hurt. You see, that's a victim mode. That's more one down. You don't want to punish them because of something overtly. So make sure your punishment, your withholding of affection, your withholding of their valid emotional needs is done from a place of you're not able to provide that, rather than it is actually a choice, and it comes from a place of making sure you remain in control of the relationship. Another key part that luckily with psychology and it being very well known nowadays is start to talk like a therapist in your relationship, because it's a very powerful way of controlling the narrative. And I'm talking about something in particular here. We're talking about learn how to meta communicate. So when you are busy having an argument, don't stay in the argument. Start talking about how your partner is speaking. Start reflecting on them and what they're doing. Now, there's a wealth of additional material that I can share here, but which I cover in other videos on destructive interactions. The key is make sure that you remain in control of the relationship and of the conversation, and in particular when a conversation is getting difficult, put yourself in a position of a therapist. That's basically a one-up position where you describe what they are doing, you describe the pattern, and if with time what you can learn is more effective mechanisms of doing this, and these are called destructive interactions. For example, A couple of key ways of maintaining control in the relationship. Whenever something is raised by your partner, for example, who tries to talk to you about something happening, referencing the past, very effective, very used by a lot of partners in relationship. Reference the past. So that means they can never talk to you without you bringing up every other time that there's been something that went wrong. You can focus on them. So start describing their character, how they don't care for you, how they're not loving enough, those type of things, while they're actually talking to you about something very practical. So you switch the relationship the whole time. And there's a wealth of other very powerful ways of doing this. The essence of this is learn to control the conversation, and that is how you will control the relationship. The next key skill is really being very careful that you never validate the other person's experience of you and of the relationship. This is very, very important. This whole project of creating an awful marriage or an awful relationship will not work if you ever lean in, if you become curious, if you try to reflect and show that you actually understand what's happening for them. You can never do that. Doing that validates their point of view. I mean, they may talk to other people, potentially, but as long as you never step into that space of actually affirming the experience, validating what's happening for them in the relationship, you should really very early on learn with the next key skill, which is control the narrative. Control what is said in the relationship. Control how the relationship is being described. Now, the narrative is this sort of shared narrative in a relationship. Now, if you wanted to have a happier relationship, that narrative will be shared. But this is not what we're talking about. We're talking about you have to maintain unilateral control over the way things are described. It's how we remember things must come from you. And that should really not focus on the experience of your partner, but on your experience. Okay, let's cut there. So this was a list of destructive interactions, very serious things that happen in a relationship. And those of you watching this may think, well, this is very, I don't know, potentially you may think it's very disrespectful, or maybe I make fun of people. It's not that. Every day I work with couples, and every day I see these things being done in relationships. Now, I don't think that for the majority of these cases these actions are intentional or deliberate or even come from a place of sort of malicious intent. I don't believe that. I think it's very rare when that is actually the case. The reality is these things happen in relationships. The reality is a lot of us, without realizing what we're doing, are constantly damaging the relationship. But it's actually so easy to get to a place where we believe we are the injured party, where we believe we are right and the other person is wrong. And we don't necessarily see that, and I see this in the couples that I work with. The focus becomes so on the other person, on what they're doing, what they said, what they did, what they didn't do or say, that the ownership isn't on the self. The ownership isn't on, well, what are you doing? And we're not talking about these vague values of respect and love and all of these things, which I never use. I'm talking about what you actually do in a conversation. How conversations get derailed. Conversations are the key, the bedrock of a relationship. And a lot of the stuff I'm talking about are the things that I see people do to each other. They really care. They really want the relationship to work. But at the same time, they're doing these things that cause irreparable damage. Over the course of time, the relationship is constantly injured. The feelings of each of the individuals is constantly so not met, not acknowledged, not affirmed, that people go to a place of becoming very hard and brittle in their interactions, where very sharp interactions, or just cooling down, where they leave the conversation, they leave the relationship. You can still be married or living together and have completely left the relationship. So I presented this sort of the art of having an awful relationship with the hope that this can be useful in sort of reflecting on, are you doing these things? I've done some of these things. I have to acknowledge that. We're all flawed human beings, but a starting place for working on our relationships, or when we look at what's happening here, what we are doing, what we are saying, how we are saying it. And we don't always know, but that's the starting place.